unity. Fight. For unity. Fight. Fight like a dog. Massa. Sing like a bee. Go like a lion.
Ladies and gentlemen, and join me as we welcome to Los Angeles, Mr. and Mrs. Nelson Mandela.
Sisters and brothers, our country today is on the brink of fundamental change. As sure as night follows day, South Africa will be free.
Comrade Mandela, Ikawani. Comrade Mandela, Ikawani. Comrade Mandela, Ikawani. Comrade Mandela.
The first time I heard about South Africa, I was in grade school. A classmate of mine returned from a trip to Johannesburg, and all she could talk about was how every home had a swimming pool. That was June 1976. When I was older, that same year, I learned over 500 students were killed by police in the township of Soweto during protests against apartheid education.
What do we want? Freedom! What do we want it? Now! What do we want? Freedom! What do we want it? Now! What do we want? Freedom!
I grew up in the U.S. during the 70s. You know, the apolitical me generation, when taking to the streets to protest was a rare event. I traveled and worked in different parts of Africa for several years, and when I came back to the States, I felt alienated from my own culture. And when I heard that a group of high school students from LA organized anti-apartheid protests in front of the South African consulate, I was curious. It made me wonder, just what does the struggle in South Africa mean to a bunch of LA teenagers?
I identify with South Africa because I see a parallel with the South African people and the Native American people, that a genocide had been committed here in the United States, and I think that's what I see happening in South Africa.
My neighborhood, I think, resembles a lot like South Africa. We're barred from anybody entering our area. They put up barricades on weekends, and we have an unwritten rule that you should be in before sundown, because then if you're on the street, you're gonna get busted by the cops just because you're on the street.
We'll never be defeated!
Hearing what they had to say about South Africa made me wonder how they'd react if they actually went there. With all the changes going on, it seemed like a perfect time to take a personal look behind all the politics. I selected a diverse group of 5 high school students from around LA and asked them to help me in planning a trip. The idea was to have each student explore South Africa in their own way, with their own video cameras, while I recorded the overall trip with my film camera.
I'm going to South Africa because one, I was invited. I'm really excited about going, and I want to go for me to link the struggle between Africans in South Africa and young African youth in Los Angeles. But I want to see what's really going on and be a part of that and feel that link.
I'm really not sure on what the youth scene is in South Africa, but I know that they are collectively putting together their strength and trying to get something done.
It's like a brotherhood. I mean, I feel some kind of connection, you know. Apartheid, I mean, it can't be going on in the 1990s.
What do we want? Freedom! What do we want it? Now!
What follows is a kaleidoscope look at our journey from our different perspectives. That's me in the hat, not exactly sure what we're about to get ourselves into. destination in South Africa is Grahamstown, a small, semi-rural town in the Eastern Cape. It's kind of an historical town because it was the center of British colonialism and Xhosa uprisings during the end of the last century. It's also the hometown of Kenneth, a friend of mine. He arranged host families for each of the students to live with during our 4-week stay here. From the beginning, I sensed that everything wasn't going to go according to plan. Kenneth and I wanted our students to stay with families from the black, white, and mixed populations of South Africa, but the kids weren't into it. They all insisted on staying in a township, areas on the outskirts of towns where most of South Africa's urban black population are forced to live.
Okay. I can't carry on myself. Hi. Hi. How are you doing, Krista? Fine. And you? Fuiseka? Yeah. And welcome to South Africa. Thank you. Thank you. My name's Serena. You already know?
July 5th, 1991. We finally arrived in Grahamstown. I feel for the most part weary and messy, but still excited. I know that everything I write about now in the beginning will differ greatly from the end. I must remember, be humble, listen.
This is the longest day I've ever lived. Ever since we landed in South Africa, tears are here to be released. It is a true privilege to be back in the motherland.
They are a group of young people, most of them, who were in the forefront in the struggle against apartheid. We are privileged as a Methodist Church and as this community in Grahamstown to have people like you.
And then you might stop on these three children. Because that's a good stopping point. Okay, you got it?
The first few days, we get to know each other by using the video cameras and taping things around the township.
I am Archie Khalo from local, that is from Grahamstown. I was so happy to see the Americans in South Africa. I always thought that Americans are most privileged people than we are. I take them as people from other planet on Earth. But when I saw them, I discovered that not everything is different from Americans as compared to us.
I'm surprised to discover that video cameras here are no big deal. The bigger attraction is this oddball group of Americans. Someone said we were a rap group from Hollywood. So after that, whatever statement of solidarity we were trying to make was never quite taken seriously.
How do you feel about being videotaped?
Pardon? I didn't hear that question.
And you don't think of them like kids like us, you know, who just kick back and have fun and, you know, drink a little and, you know, smoke a little weed and, you know, like you can relate to them on those kind of levels.
Make sure your faces are seen. Just freeze. It's just don't.
We brought a video phone to keep in touch with family and friends back in LA.
No, pero voy a venir el mismo día, nomás que vamos a estar ahí por un tiempo poquito más.
Hello? Hi, Grandma. How are you? I'm staying in the townships in Grahamstown with Simpiwe. We're sending a picture, okay? Did you get it? You got it? This is Simpiwe. You want to speak to him? Real quick? All right, hold on, all right?
Hello. 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 How you doing?
How are you?
No, I'm fine, yeah.
and I'm staying with Kamau. Teaching me English to speak like an American. No, by the way, it's nice to be with him. I say it's nice to be with Kamau here. I never even dreamt of being with an American.
Bye, you guys. I love you.
Tell him, Dad. Dad, tell everybody to be there next time.
We're out in South Africa. Out. Okay, we're done.
When people ask me about South Africa, what I tell them is, it was intense. And I basically leave it at that. And if they ask, well, how was it intense? I say, imagine all your innermost personal prejudices and everything that you don't want anybody to know being visible and out there. And everybody else's personal prejudices and everything being visible and out there. And then when you walk down the street, you can read it and you can feel it. And there was a tension in the air.
Martin had been arrested in LA for blockading the South African consulate. He's part Native American and had run away from home at an early age. When I met him, he had just started living with a guardian after being on the streets. He seems almost relieved to be in South Africa, far away from the chaos of his own life.
July 7th. I've moved into the township of Tatarini of Grahamstown with the Klaas family. Tata, or Take, is a small section of the whole city of Rini, or the black section of Grahamstown. These are the names of my new family. My South African mother is Belinda Nolotando, which means love. Then there's Zola, meaning calm, and his little brother Zanokolo, which means come with peace. My host Zola will be showing me around. Zola is one cool man, a true warrior.
So you just got around. I'm Zola, and my surname is Klaas. I am the member of the Congress of South African Students, which is briefly named as COSAS. Also the member of ANC itself, the National Liberation Movement of this country. But if maybe I can talk about Martin, I understand him as a person like me. I tried to give him the picture of the situation in this country, that apartheid is still in existing, that kind of stuff.
It was on Saturday then, when we were going to bury some of our people who were shot by the police inside the township. So when we were from Joza to this graveyard, ran about maybe 4 meters or 5 meters away from here, the police came across us and they started to shoot tear gas against us. So in the process of shooting the tear gas, they went on to shoot us about rubber bullets and the guns. And they took him and thrown him inside the police van and took him off to the barracks inside the township, inside the town. So that's how my friend was killed.
Now, these graves are the last remaining graves here. If you can look here, there's an inscription on this tombstone.
In loving memory of Rhodes Lobengula, a grandson of the late King Lobengula, born 23rd August 1903 at Grahamstown. This was written on one of the last surviving tombstones in an area of the township built on top of a graveyard. As I look back on the first few days I've been here, it's a wonder that I've kept it all together, treated as an honored guest when I knew I was just me. I feel separate and distant, as though I'm alone walking, but at the same time, someone else. This feeling of conflict is slowly giving way to an understanding of the way things work in South Africa. And with that understanding comes a great feeling of connection to the people that I meet. All I need is for you to walk from like across the street, down, right down here, past the kids with the tires. It's for the we're making this video for the United States to take it back. It's going to be a wonderful experience. You'll be on television in the U.S. and we'll be showing people exactly what the real situation is in South Africa.
Yeah, manas.
America, America, America. Break the neck America. Break the neck of this apartheid.
July 12th. We had a small party with about 9 people, with Zola, Archie, Simpiwe, Umbui, me, and Kamau. Later, Zola asked me if I wanted a woman that night. I almost gagged. And he explained to me that the women were comrades who would love to sleep with us and make us feel happy and welcome. I said that this was an unfamiliar way for me to meet a woman, but Zola said it would be totally cool. So in a little while, there was a knock on the door, and all the guys started laughing and winking to each other, and I just sat there trying to figure a way out that wouldn't hurt any feelings. Simpiwe spoke to the women in Xhosa and asked point blank, "Do you want these women?"
So you think
started busting up. With both of us laughing until tears came to our eyes, we hardly noticed the women leave. Is that something that you guys have... During one of our meetings as a group, we shared what was happening to us and how we felt and all the different reactions to our new homes. Kenneth told us that what we'd been offered was common in the townships and that sex began as early as 10 years old for the girls and 13 or 12 for boys. He said that it would have been an honor for the women if we'd accepted their more than generous offer. Kind of like people who brag about sex in the States with stars. Our star status came from our being Americans. I was not ready for this.
We don't have the right to shoot the children.
Keeping with what seems like cultural tradition, Kenneth takes us around and introduces us to the leaders and elders of the community.
We came here hearing that apartheid had been abolished, and staying here in the townships, I haven't seen many changes, you know. Have there been any changes?
We are not yet allowed to vote as blacks in South Africa.
I think this is the key point, or the main thing that we need to address, this country needs to address, that every individual needs to have the voting and a say in the affairs of the country.
We don't want people to run away with the idea that the blacks in South Africa did not fight for their country. The first war was fought in 1812, and the Xhosa soldiers captured the gunpowder and a few cannons. One bold white woman walked over to the Xhosa army under the pretext that she had left her suitcase because she knew that she will not be attacked. Unfortunately, the black soldiers, not knowing what was in this bag or in this suitcase, literally helped this woman to carry her luggage over. Yet this was gunpowder. The irony of the whole thing is that the white lady who collected her box from the Xhosa army had a statue established to honor her for her bravery. I wouldn't say for her chicanery. It's right to say for her bravery.
We have an appointment with Govind Beki, one of the founders of the African National Congress. This man is 81 years old. He was in prison with Nelson Mandela. For the first time in my life, politics have a direct impact on me.
It is the youth that is taken to its hands the fate, the destiny of this country. And they are determined to make this a democratic country.
In terms of like shattering stereotypes, I think that I shattered a lot of stereotypes because what they think of Americans is a white person, and like, you know, and like I'm Asian American, you know.
Right, this is the U.S. This is Canada, and this is Mexico. So I live over here.
I'm Korean, not Chinese. When you look at somebody who looks like me, you can't automatically assume that they're Chinese because sometimes they're Korean or Japanese or Vietnamese. There's a million other things they could be. You're all Xhosa, right? Well, sometimes do people think you're Zulu? So doesn't that make you kind of upset when, like, you know you're Xhosa and you know you speak a different language from Zulu, but you look kind of similar? So that's the same thing.
The Serena I knew was a natural rebel. Back home, she was constantly fighting her strict Korean upbringing, questioning everything. But here she seems more relaxed, almost like she's more at home.
I really miss my boyfriend.
Me and Pikazi clicked really well because it was just like the experience of always having to go to the back, and she was always sneaking around trying to sneak a smoke so that her dad wouldn't see her. And the thing that we totally jumped into firsthand was about boys, like, you know, giggling, and that's universal. Like, you know, we like cute boys, hell. And I think the family made a huge impression on me because most of my time in the U.S., I come home, I just eat by myself, and sometimes my sister will be there, sometimes my mom will be there, but there isn't that kind of community, a family community. I guess because I was like a girl growing up in Los Angeles, I was really fashion conscious and really like, I grew up reading Vogue and Elle and stuff like that. And like I emulated those kind of models. But once I went, one thing was that my mom always thought that I should get a nose job. This is like something, because I don't have a nose bridge. And she thought that like, it'd just be better if I had a nose bridge. And then when I went to South Africa and I met Pikazi, and I thought, she was one of the most beautiful women in the whole township. I mean, in the whole town. I really thought she was just gorgeous. And she didn't have a nose bridge, you know. She had a small little nose like me, you know. And I was like, you know what? It's not bad. And then ever since then, I just thought it's really ridiculous to get a nose job.
Well, we're constantly asking each other questions, you know, about different things and all that. And we found that we had quite a lot in common.
If the girl doesn't want to go, right? If the girl doesn't want to go and sleep with the guy, then the guy just drags her along, you know?
Such a barrier.
That's funny.
You know, one of the things that makes us to suffer is that we're bringing children to the earth while we are not prepared to feed them and care for them, you know.
You see, that's what I was saying. What about those people? You know, I mean, I think it's better to have an abortion in that case.
But why?
You see, she's contradicting herself.
No,
why I point that out?
I think pressuring on sex is like a really important issue. It's something I've had to personally deal with. That at a very young age, I was pressured into having sex, and it's not. I mean, it's like, it wasn't like they locked me up in a shack or anything, but it's like a kind of peer pressure is very powerful. What if I did get pregnant then? Right now I'd have a 3-year-old child. I think that like sometimes a woman's dreams and a woman's like life that's already living and is already in the process of going somewhere is of more value than of an embryo.
The next morning, the local newspaper shows up. Now someone else was taking pictures and asking questions, and I hear myself trying to explain why we're here. Well, actually, Ben, our production manager, does most of the talking, and I defer to him. Why do I do that? Because he's black? I suddenly become aware of how self-conscious I am being white in South Africa, and how I've been trying to remain invisible. But of course, it doesn't work. Although they took numerous photographs of all of us, there I was with my cameraman, Rob, splashed across the front page, the only 2 white people in the group. I've been feeling kind of uncertain about what I'm doing here. When I get an afternoon to myself, I decide to take a walk to clear my head. I stroll through the residential white part of Grahamstown. It's a lot like the American suburb I grew up in. Like my hometown, the few black people I see here are either manual laborers or domestic help, servicing a community they don't live in. I'm fascinated by the white South Africans and their side of the story. I want to ask them how they feel about the past and what they think about the future, but I don't. Instead, I wander around the old British fortress, which has been preserved as a museum. I can't stop thinking about that white woman, the one who stole gunpowder from the Xhosa warriors. It's just a local legend, but I sense that this story holds the key to understanding how apartheid came about. Am I different than this woman?
The only thing is that I was the only like Mexican there. I was like, hey, I didn't see no tacos and stuff like that around. So I was like, hey, where's the Mexican? But there wasn't any Latin influence there. It was just like mostly like African or white.
What is the penalty shoot? I don't know what it is.
As far as I could tell, Joanne seemed to fit right into township life.
What are they doing?
But when the police came to the township to make an arrest one day, I noticed she got really uptight.
I mean, I'm that far from home, and then to go and watch something that always happens. I don't want to waste my time watching my friends be taken away like that.
But someone can't just arrest you just because of suspecting. He must have evidence, something in hand. If they
Joanne grew up in a large Mexican family and had never been away from home before. Rather than doing things with us, she started spending most of her time with her South African family.
Oh, yes, that thing, yeah. Yeah, that's enough.
She began taking care of them, cooking, shopping, and paying for things.
They don't know about like American Indians and Latinos and that we lived in the United States longer than anybody else, I got on my nerves. I didn't like it. I hate it. They're like, oh, you're from the United States. Oh, everybody come here. She's from the United States. I'm like, I'm not from the United States. I just live there, but I'm from Mexico. And they're like, where's Mexico? Like, forget it. The children in Masafunde were homeless children, and some of the kids, they didn't have parents because of the civil unrest that has been going on in South Africa for the longest time. A lot of the kids that are here in the United States are also refugees from the same kind of situations. They're coming from Central America for economic and political reasons, and they're exiles too. The difference is that the kids there, they really didn't have anything. But the feeling, the spiritual feeling, who they were, it's the same thing, and they're just children. And they had such a will to be educated that they went to the school, I think when you're young, you think that you're gonna live forever, that life is gonna keep going, and that nothing can happen to you. But it's not, you just have to learn that that's not how it is.
Today, we visited Simpiwe's high school in the township and learned that its students had been some of the most active during the school boycotts of the 80s, when many black students were arrested and some killed, protesting for better conditions and curriculum reform.
In 1986 was the year that the riots were very strong, you see, because the schools were proceeding in a very good way, you see. We were going to school as usual, but then the security would catch one of the students, you see, and then we stopped going to school, and we riot and toy in the streets demanding the student, and then the security would come and bullet us down.
It made me, if anything, envy the youth in South Africa for having some kind of organized effort, for being able to see what it is they're gonna fight. Because out here, you know, you can't see what you're fighting. You know there's something, you know there's a need to fight, and you know there's something wrong, but your enemy comes in so many different shapes, colors, sizes, and so many, you know, through economics, education, and just all the institutions around you, you don't know who to fight. And it made me envy that they had the luxury, you know.
Krista is the most outspoken in the group. Back in LA, she had run an organization called Women of Iron. I think she badly wanted to connect to the women here, but wasn't finding it that easy.
To all the women, this is my chance. I want to say this to my sisters. You don't have to wait for an engraved invitation to be a part of the struggle. Because it's your liberation, your man's liberation, your child's liberation, and your grandparents' liberation that you fight for. Because we haven't seen many active political women. And I just wanted to say to you, don't wait for an invitation because it's your struggle too. And Amala.
Krista kept trying to connect, and I realized that apartheid has been doing weird things to all of us. We've all been feeling edgy and confrontational. We're starting to see things in ourselves we'd rather not admit are there.
Okay, tell me who you are and what you do.
My name is Andile Mbete. I'm a senior pastor of the Methodist Church here in Grahamstown.
Christianity was used by whites to oppress people of color. In what ways does the church, the black church in the townships, move away from that oppressive teachings?
I think we are beginning to do our own biblical analysis. We are beginning to develop what I would call contextual theology. Contextual in the sense that we are taking seriously the situation of the people and looking at the Bible from that perspective. And this has helped us to keep the young people within the church. Hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive them that trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is thy kingdom, thy power, and thy glory forever and ever.
Being as light as I am, and for 18 years being this way, it's a little late for me to try to get sensitive and live in idealistically that everyone's going to see that I'm black. I come from a long line of black people that just were either raped or exploited or mixed or whatever, but that I haven't lost where my roots are from.
In South Africa, the apartheid term colored is used to refer to people of mixed racial heritage. Under apartheid's laws, many of them grew up separately from both blacks and whites and attend their own schools.
I'd like to know how you feel about being declared colored. If I was to live in South Africa, I'd be declared colored. In America, if you have like just an ounce of black in you, you're considered black, and your consciousness is black, and your history of your people is black with, you know, whatever. And I wanted to know how you feel about being classified as colored, and does that create animosity between the coloreds and the blacks in the townships? Do you ever have problems with that?
Most of the black and white people are recognized in South Africa, except the colored people, because there's no television, but there are TV2 for black people, their own station, and TV1 for white people, their station.
If you are colored, then you are black too. So, what can I say? So we don't worry about each other. As long as we can just live happy together, we don't care about them too, because they said if you are not white, then you are black.
What's the attitude toward that? How do you feel about that?
We can't even have feeling because what can we do? It's how we are. Yes.
Arnold Schwarzenegger? Yeah, actually. I've seen him before.
Strange, but here at the colored school is the first time we can relax. And I can't help thinking how we're all connected in some way. Kids of color meeting colored kids. And here, for once, the heavy political lines between black and white can be forgotten, and we can just be ourselves. We go out the next night to the local college hangout, and with the help of a few beers, we jump right into it with a couple of white South Africans.
They're inferior to you?
Well, they were.
What makes them inferior to you?
Because they've always been regarded as inferior to us.
Why is that?
Because he's been taught by his parents and those parents to feel superior because they were uncivilized when we came in.
I mean, apartheid probably ended about 5 years ago when you come to things like the dancing clubs and things like this. I mean, I think you people have got a bit of a misconception of the state of the country when it comes to things like that.
But that's theoretical, man. Practically, he knows that many whites don't go for it. Especially you can mention the AWB, they don't go for blacks.
Excuse me, if you think this is a party, why don't you go up to the townships and see what a real party's about? This is a joke. When you go there, you aren't an arsehole, you're just another person, regardless of what the color of your skin is, regardless of what your voice is, or where you're from. You're welcomed, they burn your fire, they play your music.
They give you food.
And that is what it's about.
It's not a matter of politics, it's a matter of people right next door to you. Humanity. It's a matter of human rights. It's a matter of people having the bare essentials to live. You know, it's not about politics. It's not even about politics. In America, that's not here. In America, you had Indians and things. I mean, the Negroes only arrived with the slaves. Huh?
Hi. How are you doing?
Visiting one of the white schools in Grahamstown opened our eyes. Some of these schools had just recently been open to all races, but few blacks could afford the fees. Touring the grounds, I realized as Americans we had more in common with the white South Africans than the families we've been living with in the township for the past few weeks. What had been an easy racial thing all along now became one of class as well.
Because, you know, whenever anyone wants to come to South Africa, they sort of apartheid in South Africa are not mentioned unless it's in the same sentence. Apartheid is an institution that was only wanted by about 5% of the entire population, and to sort of slant people for a policy their government happens to have.
This country's going to go like Zimbabwe, which became economically crippled, and all the whites left. Only the tough survived, and they bought fortresses to live in.
So how do you think that that's going to stop? Because, I mean, in America, when the blacks were freed from slavery, there to this day still goes on like a mental slavery. Whereas, you know, it's all in the minds of blacks and whites.
Hopefully, we won't be looked down on for our past prejudices. And if I got like almost persecuted, like for being a white skin, then I most probably would leave. I don't know. It's for the future generations to decide. They're gonna have to get on and get along and work together to build this country.
Being a black man in South Africa. I mean, I couldn't answer that right now.
Kamau had been unusually quiet and kind of distant up until now. His parents chose a name which means quiet warrior in Kikuyu, and to be concerned in Japanese. His father was killed when he was just a baby trying to set up a Muslim mosque in New York, so he's raised by his Japanese-American mother. In high school, he was always drawing something, but the entire time he was in South Africa, he never drew a thing.
I think back to it and I look back and I see it's like this separate picture of myself, like just everything I was experiencing, everything I was doing and going through inside, and just being in that whole environment, you know, it's an oppressive environment. It's like everything was okay for us in a sense because we're American, but for them, they were still like the outsiders, and Simpiwe and Zola, they weren't really supposed to be there, or that's the way that the vibe was, you know. But I felt, you know, at home in a sense, I think. You know. I felt like I was really going back to my roots.
Ngoku xa sendiphuma apha xa ndibheke elokishini zonke ezaa zinto eza kuzafuneke ndiziyeke ezaa zinto ndizibonakalise ngokuthi ndindoda ndingumntu omkhulu ohloniphekileyo.
Okay. What he's all saying, guys, is that the point of getting circumcised is so that you become an adult, you know? And when you get circumcised, the old people, like old men, they come and teach you, they tell you everything. Let's get a little bit rude, you know?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll be rude this time. You see, when your cock is not cut, then girls don't feel it, man. And let's say when your cock is cut, then all the girls are going to run after you. But that is not the fact that why they get circumcised. His word of encouragement is that we need you guys, our brothers, our black brothers in America, we need you. It's gonna help you guys to learn about African customs, and that's gonna be part of how to bring you guys back home.
There's something different about the sunsets in South Africa. Nothing but the sky seems to matter, and I'm overcome with a sense of relief. I'd been warned about traveling through the township at night, but once it's dark, something strange happens to me. I feel like I can see better, as if I'm only eyes, no longer attached to a white body, no longer concerned with how others see me. Through the darkness, I make out a family gathered around a fire. Again, I hesitate, but the mother invites me closer, saying, "It's a cold night. Come get warm."
You guys are going tomorrow. I mean Wednesday.
July 22nd. I'm not yet ready to leave. Not at all. For a while I was thinking of how long ago it was that I first met Simpiwe. His first words being, "I never dreamt of meeting an American." I thought to myself of never being in South Africa. Simpiwe is one of the deepest people I have met. Throughout this trip, he has brought knowledge, women, fear, anger, love, admiration, and many other emotions that come to mind. But most of all, he has given me a brother in South Africa. And there's nothing in this world more important than family.
poem. Gone are those days when my grandfather used to sit me on his lap and tell me about his youth, when he was a good headsman. Oh, what am I to tell my grandchildren one day about my happy days watching TV? Oh, my fear of soldiers and police roaming the township. A white man shouting in his highest voice, "Shoot, skid, shoot those Kafirs. Is this what we call life? Are we to hide or stay indoors for the rest of our youth days?" The end.
Take your mother to the war. Take your mother, Yamasa. Take your brother to the war. Take your brother, Killer Man. Kill them all, Killer Man. Collaborator, Killer Man. Collaborator, Killer Man.
One of the last things we do is visit the grave of Stephen Biko, the founder of the Black Consciousness Movement, killed in police custody. When we arrive at the graveyard, a group of men from the township are there digging fresh graves. The state grave diggers still refuse to dig black graves. They stop their work and watch us, the apartheid tourists, and for a moment, no one can move. It's an absurd and painful moment, and one that I'll never forget.
Hem, 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 hem. Sayikhwela intaba siginqa amatshe. Wena baba sayikhwela intaba, sayikhwela intaba, sayikhwela intaba siginqa amatshe.
We are the leaders of the New South Africa, okay? So we have to try by all means to work hard at it and all that. And the whites are gonna try and get us to fail at that.
Well, hopefully with the change that's occurring now, people will be more able to have equal opportunity, and hopefully they'll be able to get on better. Hopefully to put aside their differences, but it's gonna be a long time. It's gonna take a couple of years because there's a lot to catch up on.
We want to live in harmony. I mean, we must live with whites and see no color, just like in America. We must live like brothers and sisters.
It doesn't feel at all like we're leaving. It feels much more like we finally arrived somewhere. On the way back to Johannesburg, we take the long way through the Transkei, one of the so-called homelands for blacks, which remind me a lot of the Native American reservations back home. Along the way, we pick up the newspaper and read that President Bush has just lifted sanctions against South Africa. With everything we've seen, we're stunned. Is this a sign of change? We say our final goodbyes on a beach that until recently was restricted to coloreds only. No one says anything for a long time.
The way I'm feeling right now, when I feel like this, I usually don't share. It's like becoming naked. Like, what I have here is not really a poem, but it's, you know, everything that I have felt, you know, just, it's Mother Africa. I made love with Africa today. She spoke to me through the sea. The waters like little children ran to greet me. I then imagined what the people looked like standing where I was, standing watching the settlers come in more. Tears ran down inside. The sea whispered through me. The water seemed to dress up for the occasion. Blue waters, green glows, and a rainbow glistened on the sand. When it was time to go, more tears inside fell. As I walked away, I blew a kiss to Mother Africa.
Less than a year later, Los Angeles was on fire. Watching my neighborhood burn, I couldn't get images of South Africa out of my mind. And the one that kept coming back the strongest was that family around the fire. And I remembered the words of a white South African writer. Looking into South Africa is like looking into the mirror at midnight. Terrible face, but your own.
When I first heard the decision, I just dropped my head, you know, because I knew what the next step was going to be, because I knew my peers, what they had already been discussing. And it did bring back memories when I saw, you know, in South Africa how the young man was put in a cage in the police car, and the police just came into the community and did that, and the community was angry, but they were helpless. I mean, in a situation like that, what is right and what is wrong? You know, what reaction is right and what reaction is wrong?
I guess I'm not as naive anymore. Maybe, I don't know, if not naive, because I mean, I live here, so. And it's like, it's worldwide, I mean. So you go ahead and you become like, you go to college and you do all that stuff, but it doesn't mean anything if you don't come and help your own community and stuff like that.
The thing about South Africa, I was so young. I didn't know what I was getting into, and, well, not that, most of us didn't, but I think, like, I really didn't understand the importance of being there.
From the minute I got back from South Africa, back into the United States, I felt lost. I had nothing. I had no connection to anybody after just this intense amount of all I was doing was connecting. And then you come back here to America and people avoid connection.
The time came to go to college, and like, what's funny is I chose a dorm that's like named after Stephen Biko, and I just thought, wow, you know, I have to live there because I visited his grave and all that. I've never been proud of the fact that I was different until just recently, you know? I'm different, and there's just no denying it, and if I'm different, I should celebrate it.
It's like I look back and I look at what's going on right now, and it's just such a big difference. It's a big difference in who I was. And
you know, I felt like I got so much from the trip that it was unfair, and I felt selfish, you know, and I had to deal with that because I felt that I should have left something really there, but I didn't know what to do or how to do it.
Chris Honey, we miss you. Chris Honey.